guys. I am going to introduce our third essay of the semester. Hard to believe. I know not all of you have your first essay back, but I'm working on those quickly, and I'm hoping to have those back to you in the next probably 48 hours. Okay, so our third essay of the semester has a couple of components. So it's going to be a researched essay, so you're going to be using at least 3 sources, and I'm going to do a separate video because these need to be kind of like a certain length for me to be able to upload them. I'm going to do a separate video kind of talking to you about library resources and how to use those to look for information and also to kind of help you pick your topic. So that's kind of the first part of this. The second part of this is the argumentative aspect of it. So this is an argumentative essay, and it is going to take the form of a letter. And the reason I decided to do this in the form of a letter, I've never done this before, but I feel like putting this in the form of a letter gives you a more immediate audience, a clearer audience, and a clearer purpose. And I'll get into that more in just a few minutes. I do want to first talk about the argumentative essay as a genre, because you guys are going to be writing argumentative essays depending on your major. All of you will, but some of you more so than others. So this is not a genre that you are going to do once in my class and then never experience again. This is something that you will be doing throughout your academic career. So I feel like this is kind of one of our more important assignments of the semester. So the Norton Field Guide, which I'm a big fan of if you haven't noticed by now, identifies several key features of an effective argument. So the first thing is a clear and arguable position. And they say keep in mind that some claims are not arguable. They might be a matter of opinion or an established fact. So let's say you wanted to write an argument about how mustard is the best condiment. That's an opinion. There's not really going to be any kind of evidence that you can use to back that up. You also don't want to argue something that has been scientifically proven because no one's going to argue against you. And so that's really important. It's kind of a so what kind of thing. So if you were to say that the earth is a cylindrical roundish shape and not actually flat as was once thought, that has been pretty well established regardless of some of the random things that you see on the internet. So that's established fact, not something you would want to argue. So a clear and arguable position is important. Necessary background information. So depending on who your audience is, and we'll talk about audience a little bit more, you may need to share some relevant facts, some relevant information to kind of help your reader understand the context of what you're talking about, the basics of your topic. Good reasons. So your main argument is your claim. The claim, that's going to kind of be like your thesis statement, your topic, and what your position is on your topic. You're going to back up your claim or your thesis with reasons, okay? And you can think of reasons as, there's going to be a body paragraph. Each body paragraph in your letter is going to be dedicated to reasons. So simply stating your position is not effective enough. You need to include convincing reasons why your argument is important, is credible, is the right argument. So those are going to be your points for why your reader needs to consider your argument over others. And then evidence. And so evidence is also going to appear in these body paragraphs. Evidence is going to be outside information that supports your argument. So this could be facts, statistics, expert testimony, anecdotal evidence, case studies, textual evidence. This is going to be stuff that comes from those sources, okay? So you'll establish your claim or your thesis in that first paragraph. And then each of your body paragraphs will begin with you asserting a reason. and then backing up that reason with convincing evidence. So a few other things. Your argument needs to appeal to your reader's values. So keep your reader's values and emotions in mind. So consider, those are rhetorical appeals that we talked about with our first essay, specifically ethos. So establishing yourself as a credible source, and pathos, appealing to your reader's values and emotions. I do want to make a note on this, okay? And this goes down into a trustworthy tone. Just because you are appealing to your reader's emotions doesn't mean that your tone should be emotional. You need to establish that you're a credible source through a balanced tone, attention to the perspectives of others, so, and I'll talk about that more in a second, and a clear, logical approach. So your tone should be very even. You shouldn't be attacking. You shouldn't be using emotional or attacking language. Your tone needs to be very even. If your tone is even, that is going to give your reader more a better idea of you as a credible writer. And some of that comes into this last one here, careful consideration of other positions. So in order to establish your own argument, you need to know what others are saying, even those positions that differ from your own. So it's often helpful to bring in like a well-known counter-argument to whatever you're arguing. That's a good thing to keep in mind there. Okay, and just to kind of show you, persuasive essays and argumentative essays are often kind of considered to be the same thing, but they really are not. And I've got this posted to Momentum under the Week 9 resources, and this tells you a little bit about the difference between persuasive and argumentative writing. So persuasive writing, the starting point is identify your topic and choose your side. For argumentative writing, you're going to try to start out a little bit more objective. So you're going to identify your topic, you're going to research your topic, and decide which side you support. The purpose of persuasive writing, purely persuasive writing as a genre, is just to get the reader to agree with your opinion, okay, at whatever cost. But the purpose of argumentative writing is to get the reader to recognize your side of the argument as valid. It's not necessarily to make them think that your perspective is the only one, but it's to get them to see your argument as valid and you as a credible source. So persuasive writing, these are some of the techniques that they use. They combine facts with emotion to convince a reader that the author is right, and the only one who is right. It's very emotions-based. And by that I mean it not only plays to the reader's emotions, but the tone is very emotional. Ignores counterclaims. Doesn't think about what other people might argue in response to the writer's own claims. Presents only ideas that help establish that position. Ignores all others. Only presents one side, and that's the author's side. And it makes claims without backing them up with evidence. So it doesn't bring in any of those secondary sources. An argumentative piece of writing, on the other hand, it offers, doesn't, bring in emotions to convince the reader. It offers facts, reasons, and evidence to show that the author has valid points. Therefore, it's logic-based. When appropriate, it acknowledges opposing claims and then kind of shows, when appropriate, which of those claims are kind of less credible than the writer's own. Often compares ideas to establish a position. Presents multiple sides, but is clear which is the author's side. And always provides evidence with claims. So it doesn't just say, this is what's right, nothing else should be considered. And then the tone is going to be very different. The tone of a persuasive essay is going to be emotionally charged and very aggressive, whereas the tone of a piece of argumentative writing is going to be calmer, and just trying to get the reader to acknowledge that the author side is worthy of consideration. And I think we're all pretty familiar with persuasive writing because of social media. I think that you could probably pull up your Facebook Facebook feed or Twitter feed or whatever and pretty quickly find some evidence of those really emotionally charged and aggressive pieces of writing. So hopefully that gives you some idea of the differences. In argumentative writing, logic-based, even tone, considering the points of others, providing evidence to back up your points, that is what we are going for here. And that's really what you should be going for in academic essays, period. Okay, so this is your prompt. You're going to choose an arguable topic that, one, is of interest to you. That's very important. I want it to be something that you find interesting. And two, that is focused, although not too narrowly. And we're going to talk a little bit more about your topic. It shouldn't be focused too narrowly, but it also doesn't need to be too broad. So your topic should be an issue or problem that is a part of an ongoing debate or larger conversation. So this is where focusing your topic too narrowly can be problematic. If you choose something that isn't related to an ongoing conversation or debate, so where people are coming in from different sides and saying, this is my perspective, and then another person is saying, this is my perspective, it's different, this is my argument. If you don't find a topic that has that, you're not going to be able to find research to put your argument in conversation with. Okay, so then you're going to write a business letter to someone in power. That could be the president of our university. That could be one of your local congressmen. It could be a school board official. It could be, there are so many things that people that you could write to. Someone in the Better Business Bureau. If you have a topic and you're struggling to figure out who to write to, that's where I can come in and I can try to help you figure out who would be most appropriate, who your audience should be. So you'll write that letter and bring in at least 3 credible sources. And then even though it's not really, we're going to try to follow this genre of the letter as closely as possible. The only difference will be that you're going to be using MLA format in text citations for practice and an MLA Works Cited page. And I've included some resources on the second page for that, and we'll also be working through those together. So I've included a kind of step-by-step process here to hopefully make this a little easier. So choose a topic that you want to write about and decide what stance you want to take. Remember that this needs to be a topic that's arguable and has a clear opposition. Once you've chosen your topic, you're going to research to find credible sources on your topic. You're going to need at least 3 sources for this paper. And as I said earlier, I am going to be doing a library research easy for me to say, overview video. But you guys can also contact a librarian. I've included the contact link here. That link, it'll give you the information for email, phone number, and also you can text a librarian. And during normal business hours, you can also send an instant message, and they'll get back to you pretty quickly if they're in. And if not, it's sometimes next day. But if you say, I'm struggling with my topic, or I can't find any information about this topic, they're really good about helping you to reword your search or to point you toward a different database to kind of help you figure that out. Okay, so once you've found some research, you'll want to read through, finding evidence that backs up the stance that you're going to make, as well as looking for some common counter arguments, so points that others make that you might disagree with. Because those counter arguments can really be a good thing for acting as a jumping off point for your own argument. And I do have a counter arguments handout on Momentum, or will, for a later week that you guys can check out. I have seen students who've organized their entire paper really successfully around counter arguments, because there are so many common counter arguments to the position that they're making. So once you have gone through your research, you're going to decide on your claim, your specific thesis, and you're going to come up with a list of reasons to explain, develop, and back up that claim. And I have posted, computer to work. Under week 9, I have posted a claims and reasons workshop. And this is sort of like the drafting workshops that I've posted in the past. But this is kind of an earlier version. So you can write out your central argument or your thesis in that first block. And then after, you can kind of figure out what are my reasons. And reasons are really because statements. So if I'm arguing something like college athletes should get some kind of compensation for playing college sports. These reasons are because statements. You can kind of to get these, you can kind of do an exercise where you say college athletes should get compensated for playing college sports because they bring in a lot of revenue to the college, because they are unable to work jobs because of the demands of practice in addition to their academic requirements. So those because statements can really help you to flesh out your reasons. And then, of course, going back to your research and filling in that evidence. What evidence is related to my reasons? And I think that this is a really good way, putting it down on paper here is a good way for you to see where are there holes in my argument, what am I missing, where do I need more evidence, where do I need to kind of flesh out my because statements or my reasons. That gives you a really good visual right there. And then you begin drafting your letter. So you can return to that claims, reasons, and evidence handout to kind of use as an outline. You'll want to make sure that your first paragraph outlines your claim. And then, so that consider that, it doesn't have to be a traditional introduction because it's a letter, but you do want to make sure somewhere in there your claim or your thesis is present. And then in each subsequent paragraph, you're going to want to address a specific point or reason. So those because statements that back up your claim, as well as evidence. And then your final paragraph should sum up your claim and emphasize the importance of what you're arguing for, as well as explain how the official you're writing to can make a difference in or should take action on what you're arguing for. So that's kind of the call to action paragraph. If I'm writing to President Whaley, say, about giving, I don't know where the student athletes example came from, but student athletes should be compensated. I could say, President Whaley, I implore you to work with TBR to come up with some sort of plan to better compensate our athletes so that they're more likely to excel academically as well as in their sports career or something like that. I don't know. And then, of course, we'll go through the peer review process, and you guys can also contact me for questions or for help. Your audience and purpose, I really like the idea of this letter because it seems to me very clear. So your audience is going to be the person in authority to whom you're writing. So make sure that kind of guides your tone. And your purpose here is to convince that reader, so that person in authority, that your argument is reasonable, credible, and worthy of consideration. And hopefully to get them to actually do something about this. And there's nothing saying that you guys couldn't write these letters and actually send them. That would be wonderful. I would be so happy. So this is, because it's a letter, it's going to be a little shorter than some of our other pieces of writing. So I'm going to say a minimum of 750 words, around that. I'm not concerned about font or spacing, but it needs to look professional. I think most letters would not be double spaced, so I would encourage you guys to single space these, In the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to give you guys some examples of these on Momentum, rather than using an assignment block, you're going to add the name of the person you're writing to, their position, and then if you can find it, their contact information. And then you're going to begin with a salutation and the name of the person you're writing to. So in the upper left-hand corner, I might put President Christopher Whaley. Underneath that, Roane State Community College, and then under that the address and maybe his email address. And then I would start out, Dear President Whaley, comma, and I'd start my letter. And then you're also going to want to have a sign off, so with your name. So something like, sincerely, Jenny Rowan, if this was the letter I'm writing. And again, like I said, although it isn't typical of the genre of the letter, you are going to want to include in-text citations and a works cited page in MLA format. And that's giving us practice for using MLA, or really just, I don't care about MLA specifically, but you probably will be using MLA in some of your other classes. To me, it's more important that you guys are just practicing citing sources. And hopefully by the time you're done with this, I can show you some ways that you can take what you're learning with MLA and transfer that to some of the other citation styles, so that if you're going into allied health or something like that, where you're going to be using something like APA, you can take the skills you learned with MLA and transfer those directly to APA. And I don't expect you guys to memorize MLA or to do it perfectly. This is a learning process, so we'll work on it together. Some tips. So choose your topic early. That way you can begin researching early as well. This is really important, and I'm going to touch base with you guys as you're choosing your topics. I'm going to have you guys post those to the discussion board next week. So when choosing your topic, avoid those that are too broad. So we've already talked about narrow, but you don't want to choose a really broad topic that you couldn't possibly cover. So try to find something really specific, something achievable. So focus only on the most important points. Even if you have a pretty specific topic, it's probably going to be there's too much that you could really cover in the letter. So focus only on the most important points, rather than analyzing every single point of your topic. Your goal is to get your reader to read the entire letter and to be persuaded. And if this is a 30-page letter, it's probably not going to happen. So remember that your argument should be evidence and reasons based, not based on morality. It should be very logical. Shaming someone has never been a good way of getting them to kind of come over to your side. So one thing you might think about doing is, once you've chosen your topic, create a research question to kind of guide your research. This can help you to kind of keep an open mind as you read the perspective of others and kind of come out with a more well-developed, logical, nuanced argument that you might not have if you just went in saying, I know this is what I'm going to argue, and I'm just going to find things that back that up. So your thesis statement, so in this case, that's going to be a very clearly articulated sentence in the first paragraph of your letter, outlining the argument that you're making. You don't need to get fancy with this. You're asking someone to believe something very specific and then to do something about it. It needs to assert a clearly defined position, and if it's well done, your intention cannot be mistaken. You don't try to create mystery in your argument. Make sure your reader knows up front what it is that you're arguing. As I've said before, it's good to address some of the objections that your opposition would have to your argument. That shows, rather than weakening your argument, what that does is it shows your reader that you are, and I actually had a lot of people who brought this up have been bringing this up in the rhetorical analyses, and I've been very thrilled by it. By addressing some of the kind of counter arguments, you are showing that you're increasing your ethos as a writer, because you're showing your reader, hey, this is a person who's not just so stuck on what they believe that they don't have the ability to look at other perspectives, and that only makes you kind of a stronger a stronger arguer. Okay, so, and then don't forget to introduce all sources, document them using MLA, and follow them up directly connect them to your overall argument. I'm going to do more on this, but I did want to show you guys, I'm going to post what's called the Oreo cookie method, and then an incorporating research handout to Momentum, and I'm going to do a video over those. And then this is what I'm referring you guys to. If you have a handbook, that's great. You can use that. But I actually think this is the OWL at Purdue, and I think this is a much easier kind of guide for MLA. So if you see over here on the left-hand side, there's general format, MLA formatting and style guide. Those are kind of an overview. And then you have MLA citation, in-text citations, the basics. So this kind of shows you how to do the in-text citations. And I'll talk more, again, I'm going to talk more about all of this later, but I just want to show you these resources. And then we also have a works cited page basic format. And one thing to note, you guys can totally use these citation generators, okay? So if you have a website, you can insert the URL here and press cite. The one thing with these citation generators, the format doesn't always kind of come through correctly. So you usually do want to go back and double check it with one of these. So if you have a book, most of you probably aren't going to be using books. What you're mostly probably going to be using are electronic sources from databases or journal articles from databases. So periodicals and electronic sources, those are going to probably be the two that you'll most use. But again, a lot of those are very similar, and I'll help you guys with those. And then the last kind of tip I have here is avoid generalizations, cliches, and distorted and inflammatory language in your argument. Those can do so much to really alienate your reader, make them think that you are not a credible writer. So watch for that. If you choose a topic that you're super passionate about, it becomes much more difficult to avoid those things. I don't say that a topic is kind of off the table. I will say that there are certain topics, like the very common ones, like abortion and gun rights. Students tend to just want to approach them wholesale, and those are very, very big topics. So unless you're going to be much more specific in your kind of approach to a topic like that, that's not going to work. But even if you do decide to be more specific, the problem is that those are just two examples. They're things that people tend to feel very passionate about, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't always translate well to an academic essay, because often you're not able to kind of take the emotion out of your writing. And so if you find a topic that you feel very, very passionate about, that's great, but make sure that it's something that you can write about in a very even, logical way, rather than relying on emotion. So, and then avoid using logical fallacies. We'll talk more about these, but here's a link to the OWL Purdue's list and explanation of those. So that's our essay 3, and I think it's going to be fun. I can't wait to see what you guys decide to write about. You're also interesting, and I'm learning so many cool things from you guys this semester. And yeah, you guys are doing a great job. You're a joy to work with, and just keep up the good work. If you guys have any questions about this essay as we're going, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to answer questions, and I'm getting some really good questions from you guys. So have a lovely afternoon.